Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
It's Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and you're joining us on the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jennifer Bloom. Jennifer, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Jennifer. I'm so excited to be here. I just want to say first that meeting you, I felt like for me, it was very divine for me because I had been looking for and asking universe about someone who's strong and very knowledgeable around financial literacy. And I was sitting beside you through a lot of the events. So I'm just really, really grateful to be here. Thank you.
Oh, gosh, it was such a pleasure meeting you and sharing some of those moments too. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, so the first question I always ask is tell us all about you and why you do what you do.
Sure. So I'm Jennifer Bloom, and I'm a children's author. And I actually just had my first in a new series that's called Hey Brave Girl. And it's a self-love journal and a mindset journal for girls and in the ages 6 to 9. So why do I do what I do? A little bit about me is I have 20 plus years background in working with children. I'm an ECE educator, and I fell into that when I was probably 20 something and went to college. And I remember working the first time thinking, oh my God, like I can actually get paid to do this. I've always loved children from the time I was like little. Love kids, and I still love kids. I feel like children are just a beautiful inspiration, and they just speak from their heart and say what they think. And I wish there was more of adults like that. So I've always been drawn to kids, and so until not too long ago, maybe a couple years, I started having back problems. So it was really heartbreaking to me, and I wanted to still have an impact on kids. And I myself was a really sensitive child, and I've had to go through a lot of inner child healing for me to evolve into someone with confidence. So I bloomed very late. So I just really feel like that making these journals for girls. I have two daughters myself. I do have a son as well. My girls are older now, and the things that I did with them, which was very different in how I was parented. Love my parents, but it was a different generation. And they've grown up to be strong and confident, way more than I ever was. And it felt like all the things I had done with the kids, with them and in childcare and in schools was working. I was able to see that, but not being able to work in the classroom anymore was really heartbreaking. So I decided to put my creative side, which we used to say I was going to be an artist when I was little, into making this book. And basically everything in the book is everything that I needed to hear and know about when I was a little girl. So that's kind of the new journey I'm on now.
I feel like that book, though, I told you this too, sitting next to you, and you were sharing that with me. And I was like, I feel like I need this book for me. I'm not falling in that 6 age range, but I'm like, I need this. Like, this is so good.
Yeah, I actually had a number of women say that to me, and some of them wanted to buy it for themselves, and it was really interesting to me. So I thought, that is interesting. I did make a book before this one. It was called A Journal of Hope and Healing, which was something I made for myself and put out there after healing from my past marriage. And but yeah, you're right. The messages that are in the book is all around like body love, self-love, being that you're capable, you're strong. There's a lot of growth mindset around your brain, how being brave to make mistakes. It's really good to make mistakes because every time you make a mistake and try again, the wires in your brain, like your brain grows stronger and bigger. So try to take the things that I've learned as an adult, like over time, and put it into their language. So there's lots of worksheets, activity sheets. There's lots of coloring pages, but it's filled with lots of positive messages and little activities that they can do so they can have fun and enjoy it. But subconsciously, they're really soaking in a lot of these messages. And it's something that the parent can do with their child as well. So yeah, I'm on this new journey, and actually, you made me think of something that you had said to me too, because I got emotional when I was telling you about the book because I was just releasing it then, and you said to me, "I think that you made this for your inner child, for you," and
Yes,
it
yes.
really hit me. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think she's right." Yeah, because it's been very cathartic to do it and then look through it and go, "Oh my gosh, it's there." Yeah,
But I think it's for all of our inner childs really, right? Like I
maybe.
mean, you were sharing that with me and I was like, "Oh, that, really resonates with Jennifer, little girl Jennifer inside."
Hmm.
And I feel like really, loving that person and lifting that person up. Like I feel like we have big girl jobs and we're adults, but really
Yeah.
inside we're also little girls.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will say before we talk more about the money side of things, um, I really dove deeper into it before I knew I'd be talking with you, and I realized how much of the childhood and inner child stuff affects the areas of money in a huge way.
Yeah, there's a huge psychological tie to everything. And the reason I think I shared this with you, the reason I started the podcast is I was listening to clients, and across the board, there was this common thread amongst everyone saying, "Oh, I don't have enough money for this." Even though they were wildly successful and had a ton of money invested, I don't have this. And it was a scarcity thing. And I was like, where does that come from? I'm like, well,
Yeah,
what did it look like in your childhood? And then people would share, "Oh, I was, living in a Midwestern family. Family was trying to get food on the table. And even though I'm wildly successful and a multimillionaire now, like they still go back to that, mentality of where that was." So it's fascinating. And I think everybody truly has that money story to where they are now. Like what story evolved to get them to where they are? Did they change the narrative? Are they just staying with the narrative that they had? Does it still serve them as a purpose? And I mean, that
yeah.
kind of goes right into like our discussion on money memories. So, what's
Hmm.
a money memory that you had as a younger person or as a child, or maybe you have several you want to share, that helped mold your relationship to money now as an adult?
So I have I have numerous stories when I started really thinking about what the things came up in my childhood and didn't realize the impact that some of them had. And a couple of them are, I'm going to talk about one that I was told about my grandma. My mom has told it numerous times because I could see my mom's face when she tells it. It really upset her. But then she had something similar with her, and I don't think she could see like how it upset me. So,
Mm.
and it's not a traumatic story, but this story was about, so my grandmother was a mother of four girls. My mom is the oldest. And um, she was a stay-at-home mom, this is years ago, and that's what they did. So women didn't have the same kind of choices with money because they stayed and take care of the kids. So one day she decided, she came home, my mom said, and she was wearing this beautiful coat, and she never buys herself anything. She worked really hard, but you're supposed to check and ask. She did not ask for permission from my grandpa to buy the coat. And when my mom saw her in the coat and all her sisters, they were so excited, so proud of her. They said how beautiful she looked. They just loved it. And then when their dad came home and he found out that she'd bought it without asking, he made her take it back. And my mother's emotion when she tells the story, she loved her dad, but it bothered her so much. All the daughters were extremely upset with my grandmother for not standing up and for taking it back. And she just kind of said, "Oh, my grandma was that kind of person who just was very loving." And she always said, you make your own bed and you sleep in your own bed. Like it is what it is. So, but for my mother, I could see it was emotional to talk about. Um, and so that I felt had an impact on her. But then that brings me to the next story that my mom has told me about her. And my dad has been there. And well, she's told it, but I can see the emotion in her. So when they were very young, my parents, they bought their first home. And my dad came from not a lot of money at all. In fact, his father was used to deliver bread. His mom didn't work. They came from Scotland, and when they were so poor, like he didn't have a bathroom with in his house till he was 18. They had an outside outhouse, so he
Wow.
came from very little, my father. His father, even when his shoes wore out, my granny would trace his shoes, the soles of his shoes on the kitchen linoleum floor and cut out the pieces of linoleum floor to line his shoes because they didn't have money. So my father worked very, very hard for what he did, and he became an engineer. My father's they're very comfortable, my parents, and he built his own engineering business. So this is back when they first bought their very first home. So apparently they had 3 mortgages on it to have this house. But my grandma, my mom's mom, was so excited for them. So she decided to surprise my mom and dad, and she bought them new curtains for the very front, their big front bay window. And because they didn't have any privacy there. And my father made her give it back to her mom. And he said, absolutely not. We don't want any handouts and no help. This is our house. We'll do it our way. And my father's a very loving father, but my mom still talks about it and says how she had to give the curtains back. And my grandmother was so upset because she wanted to give him this
Oh.
gift. So that
Mhm.
was kind of like how he was raised and how it affected him. And then my mother, but going forward a little more, I'm just going to talk about a story that I remembered, and I didn't realize how much it upset me as a money memory. And I actually cried when I was thinking about it the other day when I journaled it out because I thought I should journal this. And we used to go to California. We have family in California, in San Diego. We would drive there from Canada every other summer. So we could see my mom's 2 sisters in California, and they would come here in wintertime and see us at Christmas. And I was about 9 years old, and I had saved all the money I could for, I think, probably close to a year. And it was $18. And $18 is a lot of money to a 9-year-old in the 1970s. So I remember I had this adorable little pink kitten wallet, and I put all my money in there. And I was so excited for the trip because I knew that I had this money and I'd be able to do whatever I wanted with it. And I put it in this little bag and I kept it hidden the whole way we would drive. My parents would drive. We'd stop one night and they'd drive for 4 days until we got to California.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, um, our trips were a lot like Chevy Chase and Vacation. We had a big, long, gold, shiny station wagon, and we would sleep with those seatbelts on the back on the foam. It was a lot of fun. But so I was so excited. I had this money, and as we get to California finally after 4 long days, and the car's usually a mess by then, and we're all sweaty, whatever we get there. And I remember we're in the backyard, my grandmother's backyard, and we're picking oranges because they had oranges on their trees, and which was something we never see. We would always make fresh orange juice. And my dad left for a moment or so, and he came back to the backyard to let us know that he had brought all the suitcases in, and he surprised mom and said, I cleaned the whole car too. So the car is nice and clean. And my mouth just dropped. And I know my dad in cleaning, he doesn't do cleaning usually. I ran to the station wagon and it was clean, and I could not find my kitten wallet. And I had hidden it in a little bag inside and under the seat because I was fearful because one time money went missing from my piggy bank and I didn't know if it was a brother, but I was hiding it there. Well, it was gone. And I remember my heart just sank. And I remember running back to my dad and saying, did you see my kitten wallet? And I told him what it was in and what it looked like. And for him, as a child, I was really affected. He was a good dad, but he was just like, well, I guess it's gone now. And in my little mind, I was waiting for him to say, I'm sorry. And then I felt like he should give me the money back because it had taken me a year to save that. And he just said, you don't need the money anyways because we buy you everything you need anyways. So you'll be fine. And that was it. And I just remember feeling devastated the whole
Oh.
vacation and really hurt. So those were the kind of some of the money memories from different generations and one that I experienced.
You are listening to the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
Hey, it's Jennifer. I wanted to take a quick break to remind you that you are worthy to have a seat at the table when it comes to money and your finances. Both me and my team at Platinum Wealth Management, want to meet you where you are, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have been investing for years. Reach out to us at platinumwealth.net or call us at 775-717-0001. We'd be honored to help.
And now, back to the podcast.
And then as I got older, there's one other memory that it was numerous times where my dad would often hire my brothers and I particularly my younger brother, me, we would work together, and he was 4 years younger than me. So we would do jobs sometimes because he was really believed in hard work to earn money. Like you got to learn ethics and stuff. And I remember this one job we were doing. We were building these stone stairs going down this pathway because my parents had a beautiful home on the river. And he had a friend helping, and we were lifting these big heavy stones to make this long staircase. And something came up about money, and my younger brother said something about, I can't believe Dad's paying us $18 an hour to do this. And I thought, I'm not making $18 an hour. And he was 14 and I was 18. We're 4 years apart. So I went to my father and said, like, I approached him, and he said, well, you're a girl, and you're not as strong as the boys. The boys are physically more stronger, so then they will then be able to do more work than you. So they are worth 18 and you're worth 14. It's nothing to do with personality here. It's just you're a girl. But that was the way his mindset was. He was paying fairly. I was just so shocked. And I just remember that whole week I thought, I'll show you. And I worked harder than my brothers and his friend, and they just laughed all week how they were still getting paid more. So it became kind of one of those things like, no, like I'm going to do this. So those were some of the money memories. And it's funny because I didn't think I had really any till I started to really think about it. And it's interesting how they just started flooding and coming in. So it made me realize how important it is to really look at that. So yeah, I think maybe if
Yeah.
I had dealt and listened and looked at that years earlier, I would be further along perhaps. But yeah, I didn't realize that there was much of an impact on it, but I realized it was still in my soul, in my heart, like little Jenny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and fascinating how it's generational. I mean, grandparents,
Hmm.
parents to now, like how it just kind of trickled through your life and different stories, but similar elements there, like similar thread throughout.
Yeah. It made me kind of think about too how I think that it impacted the way I felt about how it was always like the men and the women. And I love men. I'm remarried to a wonderful husband now. Um, but that's how my brain took it as a child and then a young person. And I was a very sensitive person and I was very quiet. Not anymore, but I was back then. So I just kind of took this all in, and it made me understand why I've gone the direction I have with like the books, the journals for girls, because I've always been very, very passionate about empowering women. And I get almost like hurt underneath when I see an injustice for another woman.
Yeah, and
So
I think
yeah.
that's why it's so important that we continue to, lift one another behind the scenes, right?
Hmm.
And I'll have your information in show notes too. So for folks that want to follow you or pick up Hey Brave Girl, that information will be there. So, because I think
Okay,
it's
awesome.
fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
So another thing we chat through are financial infidelities, which I always say can be a big, scary, hairy, terminology for a lot of folks because it means different things to different people. What's a financial infidelity that you've either experienced or that you witnessed that you think others could learn from?
The biggest one that I was impacted by was my ex-husband. And I do want to say this first and preface that we were together for a long time, 28 years. We were teenagers when we met, and we were married for 19. We have been through many bumps in this journey from being together young and growing together, growing apart, and being two different people with adult children. But at this point, there's been a lot of forgiveness, and I had to realize that he was on his own journey, which was part of the learning. But he did struggle with gambling, and I did not know that that was something that he had in him when we first married. And there was a big situation that I caught him in with a lot of money on one of his credit cards, and we had to borrow from my parents, and I was the one that felt shamed. I felt so shameful for not knowing. Um, but I just kind of thought it was a one-time thing. I was that classic girl that married someone that I loved, but kind of thought that when we grow up, we will change. We'll grow up. We'll have children, and that didn't really happen on his side. So that was a big piece. And what started to happen was I started to hide money when I had cash because I didn't feel safe. Now, the interesting thing is, I started to realize that that feeling was already there, connected to my kitten wallet that I had hid, and it was gone. So I used to hide cash. This is so silly. In the basement had a drop ceiling, and I would push the tiles up and hide the cash up there because we used to live on cash envelopes for a long time. We did that because back then there was no debit cards or anything, and I used to get paid once a month. So I would put all the money into cash, and that was probably the most financially stable I ever felt. But then I started noticing that money would go missing from envelopes. So then I'd start licking them shut so that he wouldn't take, and it just kind of became a thing. But I did tend to put my head in the sand like an ostrich a lot. I think it was too emotional to deal with. I didn't realize or recognize that at the time, but I definitely do see it now. So that was something that was really difficult for me. It seemed to be better for a long time, but then it resurfaced when my kids were older, in their teens, and that was a much bigger issue with some monies going out of our RSPs and such. So I handled that differently, very quietly, and watched carefully, and that was probably the beginning of the end of our marriage. Um, and after that, when we did separate and divorce, I was on my own for a while as a single mom. And it was probably the most calm I ever felt because I had my own business. I was a dog groomer and I worked out of my home and I was paid cash and I lived on cash. I knew where everything was and I felt very safe. And I guess because it's the first time I had been on my own and knew what was happening. But I do look back now and realize how much that incident of gambling has really affected my feelings around money, and feeling safe. Safety was a big impact, and I'm actually still working on that right now. The things have come a long way. I'm remarried to someone else, um, and he's a very different person, and but that's come along with other interesting feelings because we have a full joint account. And that's been a whole journey because it's really interesting to go from having your own account and having to be with someone where we're fully joint account because
Mhm.
he makes much more money than me, but he says it's all ours. And he'll find out, I guess he listens to the podcast. I have a lot of difficulty. I'm already a frugal person, but to spend because I don't feel like I've earned it. So then I realize, oh my gosh, there's so much tied with my, I think, worthiness and money when I look back. So I've been analyzing myself for the last couple of weeks, going, whoa, okay, this is starting to connect. So I'm working on those feelings a lot right now, but it's been tricky.
Yeah, no, thank
So
you
yeah.
so much for sharing. There's so many similarities in what you're sharing, and even some with myself, quite frankly. I mean, I got married later in life to my husband, and I had everything separate. Obviously, I didn't have a partner, right? So that
Hmm.
I was sharing bank accounts with. I mean, I dated folks, but we never shared bank accounts. And so for us to have a combined account, it was scary. And it was weird too. Like for me,
Hmm.
like launching my own wealth management firm, that's like me stepping out. I always had my own income, I always had my own salary. And when you're an entrepreneur, that's a whole different ballgame because you're like, I got to figure out health insurance, I got to buy pens. I mean, things that you wouldn't normally think of when
I
you're an
know.
employee somewhere else. You're like, buying pens is the
Yeah.
thing. And so he was like, no, I've got you. I've got you. Like, I've got health insurance. It's fine. Like, lean in. And for me, that was the hardest thing ever psychologically
Yes.
because that was not what I earned. That was not mine. But he's like, no, no, it's ours. It's fine. Like I've got you. And that was,
Yes.
I still think for me, I'm like, it's a big deal. I'm married. I've been married over 10 years now, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. But to have the trust and just someone that's unconditionally loving you so much that's like, no, no, it's fine.
Yes.
It's fine is very lovely, but it's also very strange. Right? It's
It's
strange to
triggering.
embrace that and to have it, yeah. And it's not
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it ties back for me, even me for the worthy, even though I share that and talk through that a lot. But having that moment with him and being able to truly like trust someone to that extent
Yes.
financially is a huge, huge deal.
It is huge. And I didn't realize that. I thought, oh, this was going to be so much easier. He's very loving, my husband, and he's a real caretaker. And before we even married and we were in a relationship, there were things, a lot of things that I was triggered by because he was everything I wanted, but I couldn't figure out why I was having all these behavioral difficulties in our relationship. Like he would tell me I'm beautiful all the time, and I finally just say, "You just stop right now." I really
Oh,
felt so unsafe. Like, what does he want? He's trying to trick me. Like it was really so I've worked through all of that, and we are so close. He's been very patient. He understood my past, but the money piece I've never talked a lot about. So we are doing that more and more now,
that's great.
and that's been a real interesting journey as well. Like you said, going from separate bank accounts, and we had separate mail and everything in my first marriage, which was a mistake on my part, but like I wasn't to open his. And in this marriage, I was like, just so you know, I'm opening everything. It doesn't matter whose name on it. I open all the mail. And he's like, okay, here, you want my cell phone? It's all good. He's very, very trusting. So I have put the poor guy through a little bit of the ringer because it's taken me a lot of just little testing of him because I did not trust and I couldn't understand why I was behaving the way I was. We're still on a journey. We're so much better. But and he has his own money too, journey from his past as well, with very different upbringing than mine.
Mhm.
So it's interesting as we're both loving people and really um, compassionate to each other, we still have to talk through things because he was on a child had a childhood where he was an only child and they traveled all the time everywhere, and my family, they're very financially comfortable, but there's still the mindset of like there's one spoonful left of peanut butter in that jar, don't you waste that. It's very, very, my father's Scottish background and my mother's British, so that's so ingrained. It's really interesting. So I'm learning a lot, trying to figure out who am I and what is my money energy? How do I feel about it all? Been
I
really.
think it's Yeah, I think it's always a journey, right? I think it's always a
Mhm.
journey. We're always navigating through. And I think when you have a healthy, loving relationship, which I'm so, so grateful for you and for me, for my relationship,
Yeah.
it definitely makes things lovely, but you still in the back of your mind are like, wow, is this too good to be true sometimes, you know? And I feel like for
Yes.
me, I have the very greatest husband on the planet, and I'm so grateful. And I've grown a lot and learned a lot, and I think he has too. And I think a lot of that ties back to how you grew up in a family environment, like what your past relationships look like. There's a trickle down from all of that to like really combine to who we are now as people, and we're still evolving. So I always say I'm a work in
Yeah.
progress, a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I loved about meeting you, and coming across your podcast and everything. It made me feel like less alone because you have a real wide variety of guests on your show, I noticed. And it made me feel safe. And like I said, less alone, that I was hearing things from people who have big companies and such and still had money memories and money days and things that, and so I was like, wow, um, even it doesn't matter where you are financially, you still have those things you bring with you and you're still working through them. So it gives me hope that I will get to the place that I want. I know I'm going in that direction, but yeah, coming across your podcast and meeting you was um, an awesome thing, and I do remember one exercise we did at the event was we had to, we were told we had to follow the other person on Instagram and then send them a DM message to say something complimentary, and all I kept thinking, and I'd said to you, was like, I I complimented your energy. Your energy was just so beautiful and calm and grounded. And when you spoke, there was confidence. And I was like, I need some of that. I just felt really calm in your presence. And that was a big piece of why I felt connected to you. And it was really interesting how, like, we didn't know each other at all, happened to be sitting beside each other. But then when you told me about your podcast, I was like, oh, okay, I'm hooked. I need this person. So, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm so grateful to sit next to you and to hear your story and to be inspired by you and your book and Hey Brave Girl. And I truly believe like the messaging that you're sharing, everybody needs and everybody's little girl needs. Like Truly. Like, I think you can always hear that you're beautiful and you're amazing and you're thoughtful and pick yourself up and move
Mhm.
forward. Like, how many times can we not hear that again and again and again? Like, so powerful.
Yeah, yeah, lots of affirmations needed for
Yeah.
sure.
Every single day. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here and for sharing. And as we start to wrap the conversation, I always like to ask,
Mhm.
what are tips and or tricks that you use in your own household to utilize money differently?
So, as I said, I'm still in some of the messy middle, but what I have learned, and especially as it's been a challenge and an interesting journey to be with someone who now we have a fully like a joint account, um, and that communication is we're very open and talking about everything, what we've bought, what we have, what we're thinking about buying. There's never any judgment feeling. It's just we try and keep that emotion neutral, which is I'm learning is something that you should try and do with money is just be a neutral emotion. But what we have started doing is having money dates. So every Sunday. And
Oh,
yeah, I read it somewhere or heard it somewhere, and it really is making a difference because so it's said to make the money date like enjoyable. So sometimes we'll go to breakfast out at a restaurant and we'll pick somewhere that we know is quieter and we'll bring out our laptop, his laptop, and then we'll sit in a booth to make it feel good. But lately we've been doing them on a Sunday late afternoon and we'll open a bottle of wine and just one glass of wine helps me relax so I can just feel comfortable talking about the conversation around money. And it's been actually really rewarding because I find that the conversations start about looking at where we are and what do we want our goals to be. We just had one and we want to talk about what's 2025 going to look like for us and what do you desire? What do I desire? If we had all the money in the world, but where would we go with that direction? So we dream now, but because we're having the conversation, I feel like I'm not so much the ostrich anymore because it was so hard to just look because feeling ashamed that I wasn't doing it good enough. And we have very different styles in spending as well. So that has made a big difference, especially when it's like a date, like I say, and we do not miss it. I'm like, always Sundays afternoons, wine or whatever, and some nibblies. And it's been changing a lot of things. It's helping us to really talk openly about. And then I also share anything I learn on podcasts about money. Like I've been talking about yours a lot. So I say, this is what I learned, and let's try this. So we come up with a lot of ideas. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun.
that's so great. I always tease it's a good fun Friday night in our household, right? Talking
I
finances.
heard you say that yours is Friday night. Oh no, I need the weekend to wind down before I can even have that conversation. But yeah,
That's
yeah,
fair.
that's
That's
good.
fair. Well, thank you again so much for sharing today. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. And thank you again for asking me to be on here. I've enjoyed it.
It's been my pleasure. And hopefully those of you listening or watching will join us on our next Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.